Welcome, everybody. September 11th, the market update desk with Scott Riley, NMLS 157152. Obviously, it's September 11th. I want to pay the respects that are due to those that lost their lives, the families that were affected, and the change we had as a country. I will say the debate that we had last night really shouldn't have been last night, especially with September 11th being today. There needed to be that respect of the focus being on September 11th today, not on the differences of what many of us have in the country. Just a personal note there. So today we got the CPI report, the CPI Consumer Price Index. This is the last key data point that is going to come out prior to the Fed's decision on September 18th at their next open market meeting. So let's kind of break this down here. The report overall showed inflation at the headline at up 0.2 for the month. Now that was in line with estimates. Year over year, headline inflation decreased from 2.9 to 2.5%. Very good drop there. That was expected. Now this is a little bit softer than what we thought of 2.6% year over year. So it has been definitely decreasing here. Now helping this was an 0.8 decline in energy prices and a 0.6 decline in gasoline. If you haven't been following what's going on with crude oil, with gasoline, there's a lot happening right now that has depressed the prices of West Texas crude oil. A lot of things going on, and part of it's been the additional refining that's been going on in the United States to bring up capacity, which is reducing cost, which is a good thing. We've all been seeing it at the pump. Core, which the Fed really focuses on, now that strips out the volatile food and energy prices, increased 0.1 hotter than expected at 0.3. Now this kept the year over year at 3.2%. Now that is where the market had expected it to be. When we break this down even more, the Fed likes to look at trends. So if we look at a 3-month trend of the headline reading, that would give a year over year run rate of 1.14%, which is fantastic. Now, if you analyze the last 3 months of core, obviously that's different than the headline, the core would be 2.04%, basically exactly where the Fed wants to see it at. So we're there, and unfortunately, I think the Fed is behind the curve with the rate cuts, because when we annualize these shorter term periods, we're definitely on the run rate of where they want us to be. Shelter, that's the big thing that takes up a lot of the inflation numbers, and I broke everything down here that I want to reference. So shelter, which makes up a little over 45% of the total core reading, was up 0.52% month over month. Year over year, increased 1 tick to 5.2% to 5.1. Now that actually constitutes 0.23% of the month over month effect. Now keep in mind, month over month, we were up on a non-rounded number, 1.87%. This takes up almost 80% of the total of the month over month. Rent was up 0.39%, rose year over year 5% to 5.1%. That constitutes 0.4 of the total month over month. And owner's equivalent rent, this is always a tough one. We did get a new panel starting this month for developing the owner's equivalent rent. That was up 0.5, and that rose 5.4% to from 5.3%. Lodging away from home gave us a little unexpected increase. That was up 1.75%, and that stayed year over year at 1.8%. Motor vehicle insurance, this is just always a thorn on our side. That did start to decelerate at up 0.6. Now that gave us a decrease year over year from 18.6% to 16.5%. I know that sounds like a huge amount. Yes, it is. But any deceleration in that is going to help us substantially. So motor vehicle insurance represented 2/100% of the total inflation. So everything else, when we take out shelter, when we take out motor vehicle insurance, everything else was up only 0.3%. So as a total, when you combine motor vehicle insurance and shelter cost, that takes up a total of 89% of the total inflation. So everything else is a minimal amount of inflation on paper, at least. I'm not saying it's not in the real world, but this is a breakdown of where we're going. No matter what the Fed does, it can't really affect motor vehicle insurance. And we know the shelter costs are a lag effect. So what we're seeing in rent renewals with apartmentlist.com and everything showing the deceleration in rising rent costs, at some point is going to start to continue to flow through. So there's really only two categories that are going to lead us to this magical 2% total inflation on a year-over-year basis. Motor vehicle, the Fed's not going to be able to control too much. And rent's already there, but it's just the computation within the panel that gets us these shelter readings. So bottom line, the report really probably didn't change anything for what the Fed is looking at doing. We're probably going to get the 25 basis point cut. In fact, there's only a 15% chance now of the Fed cutting 0.5%. Now, what's more important is the market is still forecasting and planning on 100 basis points or 1% rate cut this calendar year. So what that means is if we're only getting a quarter next week, that means either November or December has to be a 0.5 point cut. And, are they really going to cut 0.5% a few days before an election? So there's some details there that we have to continue to look at. The other thing that came out today was mortgage applications. The Mortgage Bankers Association reported that rates have dropped from 6.5% to under 6.29%, according to the MBA, which is now 1% lower from a year ago this time. Purchase volume rose 2%, rising for a second week in a row. And refinance activity is up 1%, which is now up 106% year over year. Pretty amazing numbers. In fact, refinances now constitute 47% of the total loan activity. So some real good numbers there. Don't wait for it to get lower. It may or may not. Take advantage of the rates where they are now, because there's people out there waiting, thinking that the Fed rate cut is actually going to spur mortgage rates to go down. They're already down. Cool thing I saw yesterday was Fannie Mae and Pulsenomics home price expectation survey. So it surveys 150 economists in the U.S. and they release a composite on there on where they think appreciation is going to go. So the average of those 150 economists came up with a 4.73% appreciation for 2024. Now, if you look at a $500,000 house, that means $23,650 in appreciation in a year. Now, the most optimistic quartile of those economists actually showed 6%. The least or the most pessimistic quartile showed a 4%. So either way, there's significant money, significant appreciation going on. And over the next 5 years, the average was 20% appreciation, meaning on a $500,000 house, you would make $100,000 in appreciation. The most optimistic quartile was 32% appreciation, which would be $160,000 appreciation. The most pessimistic quartile was only 8% appreciation, which still represents $40,000. So real estate is still one of the best investments out there. Take advantage of it. Don't get left behind by these growth factors that are going on. We got a 10-year bond auction later on today, which could move the market a little bit. 10-year bond right now is 3.6647. We've been fighting this resistance level that was there at 3.71. We've gotten below it. The next resistance level that we're trying to get to is about 3.47, I believe. So if we keep going down, look for continued solid rates. this is a longer video today, but we hope you find it value, and do take a minute and just pay respects for everything that happened on September 11th. We appreciate you watching the Market Update Desk, your original singular market news source for West Michigan.